Episode 5 starts off with Ollie running at Emilico. He throws her up in the air while saying super living doll secured. Oliver tells Emilico that she handled Oliver's invention wonderfully well, and that she has so much power concealed within such a small frame, and tells Ollie to give her a thorough examination. John tells Sean to make sure Emilico isn't having any strange experiments run on her. Sean runs up to Oliver and Ollie to get their attention because John is trying to apologize, but no one is paying him any attention. Oliver takes notice of them and asks if they are guests here, and asks Anna and Nancy to make some black tea. This causes John to ask what kind of black tea, because, like the soot coffee and all that. Then the intro plays. After the intro, Anna gives Kate and John their tea and tells them that they didn't have many tea leaves left, but they managed to make enough for everyone. Kate drinks the tea and comments about how weak it is. Oliver thanks Anna and Nancy by feeding them a sugar cube, because this is one way that Oliver shows his affection. A shadow off in the distance tells them to quit all the screeching while calling them brats, and then threatens to slit their throats. Anna tells us that their names are Lydia and Liddy, and that they have a slightly rough way of speaking. John says that as a noble, that level of roughness is absurd, and then he points to the sleeping pair on the level above them. Anna tells him that Jeremiah and Jeremy don't like the others intruding on their world. John asks if everyone here lacks an awareness of common sense, which causes Kate to think to herself it's like John has a sense of common sense. Oliver tells them that they've only just moved the laboratory to this building. Kate asks why here. Oliver tells her that their previous lab was in the basement of the main house, but it was too cramped. This place is old and dusty, but it's connected to the house and it's big, which is useful. The outer doors were old and rusted, so they planned to do repairs later, but he looks at the doors and then runs out of the front and screams that it's so much easier to get outside through the front now, and it's quite convenient. Kate thinks to herself that he certainly has a positive mindset. Oliver goes on how Kate has been investigating that recent matter and asks who the boy beside her is. Anna whispers to him, but we only hear what Oliver says, that being, "Oh, they're in that kind of relationship, are they?" Kate begins to emit soot and asks just how far that story has spread. While Emilico is undressing a bit, she smells something nice, and the pair that was sleeping woke up without them noticing. Emilico is confused by a living doll eating meat. Oliver tells her that it's a privilege for those associated with the Starbearers. They get more extravagant food than the other living dolls, and they're exempted from great cleanings. Anna tells them that the first aid team performs philanthropic actions, and the research team explores knowledge. Kate thinks to herself that the members of those two teams may be the future Starbearer candidates. So she asks what the research team is making. He points to another suit collector that he made himself, though. Kate tells him that she's very interested in those kinds of things and asks for them to show her everything. It cuts to Emilico juggling and counting. Oliver shows Kate a model of a lightweight suit collector. Kate then notices an invention with wheels attached to it and asks that based on the size, could those be shoes? Oliver tells her exactly right. They're shoe-shaped cycles. Oliver tells her that she's amazing. She's able to produce soot stalactites, which makes her quite exceptional. Kate asks what soot stalactites are. Does he mean those things that form on the ceiling when Kate is angry? Oliver, realizing he said something he shouldn't have, tells her that this is a secret, but it's a trait particular to those who have a high soot volume. In the children's wing, there are only a handful of such cases. According to Susanna, Barbara, Benjamin, Gilbert, Kate, John, and based on the volume of soot collected from the rooms, some say that Douglas and Sarah might be able to create stalactites as well. Kate, realizing that Oliver is giving away quite a lot of information, begins to ask about the Phantom incident and who they find suspicious. Oliver doesn't know anything about that sort of thing, but he does think that it's likely to be a man. Kate asks why, and Oliver repeats that this is a secret, but the scorches that became the Phantom escaped from the soot pipes, and the door to the soot pipes is very heavy. Unless there are two girls working together, like the twins, it would be difficult to open. Kate turns to Sean, and we see Emilico testing her balance on the rafter behind them, but Kate asks Sean if the robed figure is tall. Sean says yeah. Based on its height, he can't be sure that it's a child. Kate confirms with Oliver that adults don't come to the children's wing, and Oliver tells her that according to the rules, all management is entrusted to the Starbearers. Kate begins to go through all the information she's gathered so far. The robed figure appears secretly late at night, and wonders if the reason it's avoiding attention is because it's an adult, and that it has to be someone who is very familiar with the inside of the children's wing, and that the robed figure could be a former Starbearer, possibly Christopher. Kate begins to ask about Christopher, but Oliver cuts her off, saying that it'll make everyone angry. Christopher and Anthony are the only topics Oliver can't tell her about. Oliver tells her that he can answer any other questions, so Kate asks if they don't have rooms in the Starbearers' residential wing. Oliver says they do, but it's far from the lab, so he doesn't return to them often. This causes Kate to ask when does he bathe. Oliver tells her exactly my point, which is why he came up with this idea, deodorizing perfume. Kate asks again when does he bathe. Oliver just ignores her and continues to go on about the perfume. It works for Oliver, but in Benjamin's case, it resulted in a horrible stench. He discovered that it produces different results depending on who uses it. Sean mentions that when he ran into the roped figure, he smelled perfume, and it could have been one of the perfumes that they're using here. Kate asks to smell the perfumes. Lydia is the one that oversees them, and Lilia tells her that at the moment they are supplying the children's wing with 10 variations, and asks if they want to change their perfume. After debuting, things like clothes, furniture, and even wallpaper can be changed if they desire. John tries to take one, but she tells him that one is reserved, and goes on about how those who contribute and those who are older are given priority. Sean lowers the possibilities down to 3 perfumes. Kate asks if there's a list of the shadows who use the perfumes, and is there any shadows who recently changed their perfume for a brief time. Lydia tells her no, and that if she is trying to identify a particular individual, it's impossible. Once perfume is on the skin, it's difficult for even a professional to discern which it is. Everyone has a specific odor, which can change daily depending on their physical condition. Ollie thanks Emilico for letting them examine her on various things, and feeds her a sugar cube. Kate says it's time for them to head out, and this causes Oliver to give her a key, and tells her to keep it a secret. It's a key to the living dolls' rooms. They can use it to come to this lab at any time, even at night. Ollie hands Emilico some arm extension. Then Ollie and Oliver circle around Emilico, saying that the super living doll is always most welcome. Oliver then gives a key to John and Sean and tells them that they will fix the wall. As they're walking back, Kate goes over who her allies might be. Louise lacks a spirit of cooperation, but she works hard to achieve her own goals, and there's no malice to her. Next is Patrick. He's arrogant, but he's also possessed of a strong sense of duty. If nothing else, today's investigation has showed that those recently come of age could not have possibly committed the crime. Kate and Emilico sneak out through Emilico's room at night. The next rejoicing party is in 6 days. Though they have little time, they will solve the mystery of the phantom disturbance and discover the identity of the figure. To make that possible, they will hold a meeting of peers. Emilico reveals that the extender that Oliver gave her is a long-distance key extender stick. She uses it to unlock the door from the outside. During dinner, Kate and John were talking to Louise and Patrick about meeting at midnight. She enters the meeting room, which turns out to be Patrick's room. Kate tells him that the phantom disturbance incidents haven't been resolved. The real culprit lies elsewhere. The twins were merely scapegoats. She would like to find the real culprits within the week and tells them that that's why she asked them to gather here. Patrick tells her that the risk of drawing the Starbearer's attention for this is too high. Louise butts in and tells Kate that this conversation is incredibly boring and that all she's doing is talking about what Kate wants them to do for her, and it's incredibly egotistical of her. Kate reflects that it's not the reindoctrination that is making this conversation break down, it's her. She then tries to think, what would Emilico do? She's able to gather allies by being nice and all that stuff. So Kate jumps up and grabs some of the soot that John is emitting. She takes it to the table and forms it into a suit man and apologizes for speaking of difficult things, and that since they're all here together, let's enjoy ourselves. She asks if they make these when they're bored, but they just give her a look of, we don't do that. Louise comments that she's the only one that does that, and she doesn't seem very good at it. Kate mentions that John's suit is a little stiff compared to hers, and this causes Louise to ask if suit has different textures. They all start making suit mans with each other's suit. They start to make fun of John and his lack of creative sense. Patrick joins in, but his object falls apart. Kate says that perhaps the particles are too fine. They then begin to mix everyone's suit together, and Patrick makes a skull, Louise makes a scorch, Kate and John make their own creations, and they put them all on a plate by the fire to bake them into something like porcelain ornaments. Kate mentions that she had fun. Patrick tells her that she can come into his room again if she'd like, and as they're ragging on each other, Kate mentions to John that he sounds a little like Lydia. Kate begins to head back to her room, but Patrick stops her and asks what they should accomplish before the next time they meet. Louise says that she will also go along with the plan as well. They all hold their ornaments and swear on their bonds as peers to catch the real culprit, then the episode ends. Some personal thoughts. I've always kind of thought that the robed figure was Christopher, either that or it was like the grandmother, but Oliver also mentioned Anthony, so it could be him, though we don't know anything about him, or it could be neither of them, and the show creators are using those two as a diversion to surprise us with who the robed figure really is. But I really like this episode. Kate is developing as a person, pretty much thanks to Emilico. If anything, it seems like they've switched their roles, where Emilico is the shadow and Kate is the living doll. But I'm looking forward to next week. But that's about it. So yeah.